So just to take a minute to kind of catch us up on where we've been. If you haven't been here for a few weeks, we talked about a ladder, Jacob's ladder. Jacob was a dude that was also running away from trouble and had a dream of a ladder where angels were coming up and down and God was coming up and down. And we talked about the ladders of our lives and how it's not important what's at the top of your ladder. What matters is who is at the top of your ladder. If you're looking for meaning and purpose and direction, God being at the top of their ladder, everything else begins to fall into place. The second week, we talked about the glass ceilings we encounter when we get a God-given dream, an idea that just seems overwhelming and compelling, and yet how sometimes we are on that ladder and we are blocked from being all we're created to be by either the glass ceiling of later. You know, we say, when I get enough money, when my kids are grown up, when I'm finally retired, when I finally have all this free time, God, then I will serve you. We're in God's universe, but that's about all. And then maybe there's the next level of glass ceiling of I can't. Sometimes it's the outside voice that says, you can't, that we listen to too deeply, and it keeps us from being all that we're created to be. Or maybe we have an internal voice that says, I can't. And we stifle our growth. Then sometimes we'll say, not yet. Now, not yet is a little different than later. Not yet is, God is in your solar system and you feel that gravitational pull in your life and you're attracted to it. But, you've got kids to raise and you've got work to do and you've got a house you want to buy and you want another nice car, or at least your first nice car. So you're like, God, I will get to it, I promise you, but not quite yet. And then, of course, the top of the glass ceiling is one that we heard Moses say, me? Me? And now sometimes we think it couldn't be me keeps us from doing amazing things for God in the world because we think, surely it's someone else and not me that God's calling. We forget that God doesn't call the qualified. God qualifies those who God calls. And so last week we talked about the burning bush and our big, hairy, awesome, audacious, God-given dreams. And when you have a big, hairy, audacious, God-given dream, it often, like Moses, comes on the way of doing something else. You're driving down the road and all of a sudden you see something or some circumstance by the side of the road and it captivates your attention. And it stays with you the whole day. It's this burning thing in your spirit, this burning bush that forces you to turn to the side from the direction you're going. And it does not leave you. And it does not let you go. So, you encounter a burning bush, some circumstance, some injustice, some immorality, some sadness, some wound, some pain around you captivates your attention. You can't help but turn to the side. And it's starting to grow, this compulsion. It is the moon in your orbit. It's not the sun anymore. It is the gravitational pull of the moon. It's even closer. It's God and God's self stirring you up and planting this burning bush. How do you know it's from God, right? And not my imagination. Well, it could be a little bit of both. I think God uses the imagination to stir our hearts. But three things I think of as counsel for how do you know? One is if that burning desire is sacrificial. That is, will it require something of you? Will it require a lot of something of you? Jesus says, those who are willing to lose their life for my sake and the sake of the gospel will save it. You'll find life in living sacrificially. And a big, hairy, audacious dream given by God calls you out of yourself. It's bigger than you think you can handle yourself. You're feeling a lot like Moses, like, who, me? But I don't speak well. I don't dance well. Like, what's his first name again?
Liam.
Liam. God, why did I want to put a W in there? Thank you for correcting me. Liam wants to dance. I wish I could dance like Liam. Or at least not be ashamed to dance like Liam. It's bigger than you. and you know you can't handle it yourself, and that requires, honestly, a surrender. God, help me. God, I need your help. I can't see this all by myself. I can't do this all by myself. Micah chapter 6 in the Old Testament, an Old Testament prophet who was very unhappy with how people of Israel were living in his days, how they were choosing more for themselves. And they were showing up in church every week, but they had nothing outside of that to show everybody the difference that God was making in their life. And so he writes this. He says, with what shall I bring to the Lord, the God of heaven, whom I come to worship him? Shall I bring the best calves to burn as offerings? That was worship for them. Will the Lord be pleased if I bring him thousands of sheep or endless streams of olive oil? Those are rituals you did for cleansing and for renewal and forgiveness and worship. Shall I offer him my firstborn child to pay for my sins? Other cultures, religions, that's what they practice. No. The Lord has told us what is good. And what he requires of us is this. So if God is calling you to a dream, here are three dynamics of that dream. To do what is just, a hunger for justice, to rewrite wrongs in a way that create long-term good, to show constant love, or other readings, to show mercy, and to live in humble fellowship with God, to seek justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. Characters of a God-given dream that will pull you beyond yourself, and it will be consuming. It won't let go of you until you answer it, even with a not me, and stay in conversation with God. Rick Warren is a pastor of Saddleback Church. I learned this week that they probably have, between 10 and 15,000 people in worship every Sunday. You know how many people that church reaches through their small group ministry every week? 60,000 people. Now, you can imagine a pastor of a church that's got that much going on is very busy. But guess what? Rick Warren, that's his job. You know what his big, hairy, awesome goal is? He wants to bring AIDS to an end and minister to men and women who are infected by AIDS and the families. Michael Slaughter is the pastor of one of the largest United Methodist churches in a little town called Tip City, Ohio, Ginghamsburg United Methodist Church. He's also caught up in the varieties of ministry that church is doing. That's his job, his calling, if you will. But you know what his burning bush is? His burning bush is the Sudan Project, bringing water to places in Africa that have no water, because they know if you bring water, you will bring life in so many levels. Set people free to work. Bono, the lead singer for U2, rock and roll, soulful rock and roll. That's his job, if you will. But you know what his calling is? He wants to eradicate poverty around the world. In Africa first, but around the world. Big, hairy, audacious, God-given dreams that they'll never do by themselves, and yet they are compelled by them. They are sacrificial, they are merciful, and they are consuming. What about your life? Is there a burning bush starting to stir up? Are you allowing your head to be turned so something grows in you? And then to finish, two more things about our burning bushes coming from our text today. God calls Moses. Moses answers, comes up to the bush. God says, I want to take you into Egypt and hang out with Pharaoh and tell the Israelites God has come to set you free. Tell Pharaoh that. And Moses is like, are you kidding me? How am I going to do that? I can't speak well. I don't think I have the skills. It couldn't be me. Got to be someone else. All of the excuses we talked about, he throws out there. And then God says to him, what is that in your hand? And Moses says, well, it's a stick. And God says, throw it down. And I think that's a powerful metaphor. What is that in your hand? What do you have in your possession that God can use to live out your goal in your dream? We may be a lot like Moses. Oh, I can't sing. I can't dance like Liam. I can't play a lick of music. But I can build stuff. I can take care of children. I can teach children. I can go plant flowers in downtown Fulton. We think it's got to be some super tremendous gift. God says, what do you have in your hand? What is the gifts you possess? By yourself it may not be enough, but boy, when you get the winds of my Holy Spirit working with you and all of a sudden it starts to catch fire among a group of people, holy mackerel, all of a sudden what you have in your hand is overwhelmingly enough and it transforms you. Because God is saying, I don't want what you don't have. I want who you are and what gifts you have. And if you would let them go and throw them down and surrender them and let me use them with you, watch what we will do. We will set the captives free. And that's the other thing. Be willing to let it go. He says, throw it down. He didn't say lay it down. He said, throw it down. That's an action. You know, that's the fourth dynamic. It takes action. Thinking doesn't create change. It gets you moving and thinking about change. But what creates change is when you say, I have what God has given me. I'm going to offer it. And I'm going to do something with it. What's stirring you? And God is saying, let go. You got to release it in order for me to increase it. Jesus told a great parable about a landowner who was leaving. He was going to come back, but he was leaving. So he gave one group of his tenants 10 talents, which is a day's wage. He gave another group of tenants, another tenant 5 talents. And a third, he gave 1 talent. And he says, I'm going to go away. I'm going to give you these gifts according to your skills and abilities. And I want you to use them. I want you to do something with them. And when I come back, I'm going to take what you give back. And so he goes away and he comes back. And the person that he gave 10 of them and said, oh, see what I did? I used them. I invested them. I gave them away. I made stuff and sold them. And I have 20 talents after you gave me 10. And the landowner said, cool, that's awesome, way to go. Thank you. Man, you've been responsible for a little and now you've created a lot. You're going to be trusted with a lot. And same thing with a 5-talent person, man. I used them, I shared them, I threw them down, I released them, and they grew because I shared them and invested, and way to go. You've given a lot, and you're going to be entrusted with a lot because you've shown yourself trustworthy with these gifts. And finally the one came up to him and he said, I heard about you. I heard that you were a taskmaster, that sometimes you can be mean and sometimes you require more from your people than really you should. And so I was afraid when you gave me the gifts. So what I did is I kept them. I buried them in a thing so that I would never lose them. I wouldn't risk them, because if I risked them, I might lose them. And I didn't want you to come back and I had nothing. So I buried them in the ground so that I would give it back to you. And the taskmaster goes, oh, I mean, you could have even put it in the bank and made less than 1% interest on it. But instead you use fear to drive your choices. You used uncertainty to manipulate your sense of generosity. And he suffers a different outcome than the other two. And that's about releasing it. And God will increase it. It's willing to risk our gifts, our talents, our faith, our uncertainty, our fear, even with all of that human stuff that's part of our package, and saying, I need to let it go and let God use it. And this place won't be the same. This community won't be the same. And the world will continue to be changed. So, what do you have to offer? What do you have to give? Could you be the one right now that God is saying? That God is saying, release it so I can grow it. And when God directs you And I forgot about the singing, so don't even worry about that because I'm way past it. Unless you want to do it as a benediction, but I apologize to you for that. You know, God, get your attention. What are you going to say? Not me, or here I am. Here I am. Let's pray. God, open us. Shape us. We thank you for the privilege of the sacrament of baptism and everything we've been talking about is so plainly placed in raising of children and giving them to the world in love for you. Stir us and make us uncomfortable and open us to our burning bushes that we too may respond. Here I am. Use me.